folks. Really appreciate you tuning in to a multi platform broadcast of Nuestra Palabra, Latino writers having their say on the air. And we are coming at you in several phases. Of course, it begins, depending on what the timeline is for you, on social media across several platforms. Additionally, the video will air on fox26houston.com, and the audio will air where it all began on 90.1 FM KPFT, Houston's community station. And for you, dear listeners, don't forget that KPFT is a community radio station. It's built on donations. So, dear listeners, if you can budget a donation, please go to kpft.org, click on the tip jar, and make a donation in the name of Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Having Their Say, or our other show, Latino Politics and News. But that's not it. We have another platform that's the most essential. We come to you in person. So today we're going to celebrate a poetry reading curated by Mouthfeel Press. And it's going to take place the old-fashioned way, in person. It's part of the Texas Authors Series at the Latino Bookstore in San Antonio, based at the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center. So I want to introduce our poets. I want to bring them in to say hi to you, and you can get to know them. But don't forget, this is archived, so you can teach it in a classroom. But we also want to celebrate the fact that at one point, we couldn't do this stuff in person. I mean, Nuestra Palabra began as a in-person movement. It's great that we can convene again one more time. Maria, un abrazo grande. ¿Cómo estás?
I'm doing well, Tony. Thank you so much for having us here today on behalf of Mouthfeel Press and all the supporters and authors. We thank you very much for this opportunity to visit with you and share some of our poetry.
That's fantastic. And I want to remind folks that I'm actually in Houston, Texas at this moment. We're talking about the Latino Bookstore, which is based in San Antonio. I'm going to ask you to introduce our visiting poets. We're actually going to have 5 poets in person. And I want to say this carefully because even after it happens, what you're watching now is important for the archive because this is all happening in person in a book desert. But when the poets do their reading, I'd also like to find out where they're at. So Maria, do us a favor. Tell us where you're zooming in from and introduce tus colegas, por favorcito.
Absolutely. I am living right now in Huntsville, Texas. So I think I'm only about an hour and a half from north of Houston. So I'm very happy to be here. Originally from El Paso. For this reading today, we have Raquel Mejia, Vincent Cooper. We are expecting Carolina Monsiváis. I'm not sure if she's going to be here. And also for our reading in the Latino Bookstore in San Antonio on May 6th, we are having Liliana Valenzuela. She couldn't join us today, but we are here.
I love it. And we're looking forward not just to your readings today to find out more about each of you, but to celebrate the work of Mouthfeel Press and the poetry you've curated in person. So let's do it this way. I don't want to talk too much. I want people to enjoy the poetry. So let's do this. In the order you introduce folks, we'll have you each read a piece. What would be great is if you'd say a little something about the piece you're about to read, and then if you hand it off to the next poet, if the poet is so inspired, I'd like them to say something about the piece they just heard. I just kind of dropped that on folks too. So it's like a pop quiz of sorts. But we'll start with Maria, and we look forward to hearing all of your work. Gracias.
Okay.
You're tuning into Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Having Their Say. It's a multi-platform broadcast bringing you a ton of Latino lit.
Well, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here again, and gracias to Tony, Nuestra Palabra, and everyone who is sponsoring this reading. I thank you so much. I am going to read a poem titled A Girl Missing Her Mother the First Time She's Away from Home. And I wrote this poem many years ago, and it's kind of funny. I was wanting to always leave home when I was growing up, and now that I'm older, I want to return home. So here it is. My mother's panic paces my medulla, the place where she lodges, then insomnia at dawn. I slip my body into the solitary pool, float on my back, weightless, like smoke. My mother is a comet, a falling star. I wade in the cool water. I think heaven is a country. Loneliness licks my throat. At 3:06 a.m., I die at home. My mother is a night air, hot on my skin. I'm hypnotized by the bluish stratosphere of water. Water reminds me of her, the moist of her skin on my cheek, a jar of water on her hands to quench my thirst. My mother is Jupiter, Moon, Venus, Mars, a planet waiting to be discovered. I butterfly across the pool. Sky is turning pink. I sink my body down, enter the warmth. I'm inside my mother's womb. Thank you. Raquel, Mejia is next.
Hi, I'm located in El Paso, Texas, located next to La Frontera de Mexico y Nuevo Mexico, right where they all meet. I'm going to read something that has to do with our love of Texas. And of course, we always have a little taste of the Aztec also. All of us have someone who has moved away. All of us have a family or a friend who's gone. All of us have a Maria. So this poem is called Maria Sings. Maria sings midnight music in a distant dot in East Texas, moving the earth to hum, calming the Texas heat. Women wear the plastic smile of survival. Women wear their souls strong like a cactus needle. We hear her buried notes unearthed, held in longing, the way birds wait to sing at dawn, the way we dream of rain and fragrant colors, mango, magenta, gold leaf, Virgin Mary sings the blues. When she left the brown of West Texas, it felt like an Aztec send-off. Wine, water, and never enough words, poems, a loss, a longing, flames flung at each song. Her daughter marches to her melody, incandescent soul, searcher of truth, defender of forest and fawn. She too is an Aztec warrior. Maria sees her daughter write bold black letters on thin white paper and remembers her tender baptismal smell soon after her birth, her voyage of pain and pleasure leading to this. Maria sings in the dead of night when the wounds appear and release half-dead blackbirds onto plains, prairies, and plateaus that hold notes and drop others. Texas is a big state, and birds tire in the dead of night. The earth, A thin drum shakes, earthquake-like, from fracking and flaking and freaking digging, changing the landscape into plunder, the baking undone. Change and silence is the only constant in any song. Her songs like prayers, confessional, chaotic crescendos. A woman knows the meaning of a shut door, a shut mouth. A woman knows of empty vessels and those born of scorn. A woman knows to not mouth the melody with the real names. We hear your choir of one, you locked in a distant cage, dusting off notes of past doves, singing sad smiles, a rosary of roses, waiting for the union and reunion of all cleansed souls. Vincent?
That poem was awesome. Virgin Mary sings the blues might be the best line I've heard in a long time. Thank you for that poem. This poem is called Orans. It is actually a snapshot moment of the one and only time my parents were together. Orans. My son is the Son of God. Paul. My father held me up to the ceiling, 32 years old, drunkenly yelling at relatives in the room. He was God, and I was his son. I don't remember looking down at my family or mother apologizing when they exited. 1984. Mother grasps my arm, walking toward his thick mustache in Almanzor Park. Stillness in the pine trees, empty baseball diamonds, a silent suite in Tai Chi poses. Hello, Paul. Call him Dad. He's your father. Paul sits on the field next to a jogging trail. Mother, arm's length. Soft words are spoken. I can't hear them. Playing on the exercise equipment, watching their last kiss. Reaching the pull-up bar, Paul rises slowly to assist. 4-year-old hands gripping to hang on. Come on, Vincent, pull, pull. Hanging, losing my grip, finger by slippery finger. Giant hands momentarily secure my ribs. Blades of hair on each dorsal, pushing my body up, over the bar, grinning over at her. We have to go. Inorans, distraught. Mother cinches my elbow, marching faster away. Glancing over my shoulder to God's darkened frown. In the back seat, Mother says, count the palm trees until I sleep. Each tree careening off the car window. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to let folks who may have just tuned in now know, you're experiencing a multi-platform broadcast of Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Having Their Say. I'm Tony Diaz, a Librotraficante, and we are joined by some of the poets who you're going to get to learn more about today, but you'll get to meet them in person. And I'm trying to phrase things carefully because this is a historical document that will serve to mark the fact that our dear friends at Mouthfeel Press formed part of the Texas Author Series. And that's one of the pillar reading series at the brand new Latino Bookstore, which is located in what was once a book desert. But now look, even just now, we're bringing, all this beautiful lit to El Hueso, the west side of San Antonio, and to the rest of the world. But I love that it's based there. Pero también, this is so it can be studied in classrooms. It can be shared We're going to play it on the air on 90.1 FM KPFT. The video will air on fox26houston.com. And if you can't name 3 awesome writers, we've got 3 for you right now. Hey, Vincent, thank you for that piece. I want to start with you, but we're going to go to Maria too, because I think what's really unique is that we get a chance to hear the poems. We get to hear what the writers wanted to convey in there. We also get to hear what publishers think about this being settled on the page. Vincent, when people hear Latino poetry, they may have certain conceptions. I think each of those 3 poems was so different. So what do you think are some ways that tie what we call Latino poetry together, but also make it unique?
Yeah, so I think that's the best thing, is that there's something for everybody. We have experiences, but the similarities in our upbringing. Texas always seems to be a part of it as well, or the Southwest. So you hear a lot of colors, a lot of ancestral feelings, mythologies. The landscapes are Texan or Californian, Southwestern. So I think the land itself and the way we were brought up in this period of time, really we use a lot of these experiences, and they all, you can hear them all somewhere in there. I'm in San Antonio, so my family's from here. Everything that I have is like San Antonio based. We love the West Side, and but yeah, I think really there's a lot for everybody. Whatever you feel like, if you want to hear about sewing, or even being in the piscas, or if you want to hear something even a little bit more modern, we have it all for you. It's just who you want to listen to. We have 2 wonderful poets here as well, so everybody brings everything to the table. A lot of influences.
You bring up a good point about the legacy of San Antonio in all of our cultura. I think what I would add too, just from the standpoint of curators, and then we're going to go to Maria too, who's a curator also, and y'all curated this. The one thing about the Latino bookstore too is that it isn't a corporate bookstore, and what that could mean is that when we curate titles, we're really trying to focus on Texas Latino stories, because, like you just alluded to, this can be many things, but at the end of the day, we kind of want to put that organic link between everything. Maria, let me ask you this. So you as a publisher are a curator, and as poets too, you curate the words. What are some basic views, values, or styles do you think that you like to see in poetry?
Well, Tony, as far as when I look at a manuscript, and I work from the theoretical framework of Anthology, and that is, that we are all in this together in many ways, in many forms, unlabeled. She didn't like labels, and yet she embodied everything. She embodied everyone. And so when I looked from that framework, I'm able to understand, or even think about, how I'm going to be either accepting or looking at this manuscript. As far as themes are concerned, I always look for themes that are familiar to us, but in presented in various forms, in different ways, because everyone, as Vincent mentioned, is unique, but we all have our similar experiences, not only geographically, but also, some of us are so connected to California in so many ways. And for example, that's just one, but also some of our ancestry and the way some of our communities come together to work, to to create art, comida, familia. So we can all relate to that. But it is also outside not only that connection with community is not just a
Mhm.
geographic community, it's also outside. I mean, we can look at the entire of the United States and see so many of us out there,
Mhm.
connecting. So for me as a publisher, that is always important, and that I frame the way I look at a manuscript and what I like to see. Now, I'm very surprised actually as we were reading the poems, all of us here, that there's a lot of things that are right now emerging. Familia, again,
Mm.
that return to a home. And Raquel, I am going to assume that you had me crying there. That was a gorgeous poem. Thank you so much for that. I hope I'm that Maria. Uh,
Mhm.
but again, there's that connection of family, of comunidad that I just and that longing to return to a home, whether it's a
Mm.
mythical home, whether it's a geographical area, whether that right here is what we were
Mm.
in some ways discussing.
I like the way
And
you put that. It
thank you.
also implies that with each writer, perhaps we're expanding the definition and instead of a corporate definition or making it something easier to Google, we're complicating it by adding art to the term.
Mhm.
Raquel, of course, we do want to hear more poems, so I'm going to try and limit what I say. I'm going to try and keep the questions to a minimum. But Raquel, I'd like to get your point of view as well. But let's add this. Let's add this context. So right now, folks are listening to the poems. How do you, as a poet, lay it out on a page? And what does this experience have that's different than when we convene live as part of the Texas Author Series at the Latino Bookstore in San Antonio? Or is it all the same thing? And you're going to have to adjust your microphone for us.
Oh, all of us know that poetry is a distillation. It's a perfume that's distilled into whatever a feeling we're feeling. Like the poem that I read was a longing. Some poems are about politics. Some people are talking of grief. Some people have fun and they talk about something that makes them joyous. So putting it on a page always starts with that for the majority of us, at least for me. And as far as being together, there's so many things that went on during the pandemic that were really sad. People lost their jobs, lost family members. There's a lot of grief that went through, but there's also a bright side. We have gotten opportunities. We were pushed into these opportunities to be together virtually. We've had meetings where, I mean, in the morning we're in one meeting with people from all over the world. In the afternoon it's a different group. We don't even have to fly anywhere. I mean, we can fly, but it would be for another reason. So I'm joyous for that.
That's great. And you make a great point there because right now we've got Houston, San Antonio, Huntsville, El Paso convening at this moment. And how exciting when we're all in the same room. I'll also add it is nice to build your family library with editions that are signed and dedicated to you with the picture también. But at the same time, I like that people can get a sense of what the poetry is like. And if they hear it again, they see new meanings. Hey, I'm going to stop talking because I promised to stop talking and I promised to bring the people more poems. We'll go in the same order. And hey, folks, you're listening to Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Having Their Say. It's a multi-platform broadcast. I want to thank our crew because they donate their community cultural capital to our cause. Roxana Guzman is our multi-platform producer. Rodrigo Bravo is our audio producer, and he mixes our FM broadcast where we drop in musics and sounds. So after this, I'll ask the poets what some of their favorite songs are so we can blend that in. And then we have a whole team behind the scenes helping as well, including the co-founders of the Librotraficante movement, Lupe Mendez, Laura Costa, Liana Lopez, Brian Parras, and our graphics team, which includes Mark Anthony Pignon and Letty Lopez. But right now, then, we're going to throw it to Maria. And same thing as we did last time. Please share a poem. Tell us a little bit about it. and and then you can throw it to the next poet, and maybe that poet can say a little something about it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tony. So my next poem is titled Snow in the Chihuahuan Desert. Much of my poetry I always try to incorporate elements of geography and ecology, or just because I am so rooted in the land. And so, but I also incorporate within those aspects a little bit of, a back story, or things that connect from tree to maybe my hand limp, or my head, anything. So anyway, so this is this poem was anthologized in the Odes anthology out of Lamar University. Okay. A snow in the Chihuahuan desert. A fit of snow despite the sun's persistence. In December, when trees unveil remnants of summer's escapades, the desert is dressed in white for hours. Grasses wear its armor, and life retreats to burrows. Beneath creosotes, the clamor of birds cease, and we are high like winds in spring, crazy with want to touch, to leak, devour the skies uncoiling, as if we were young again when mother on her knees kneaded snow like flour, rolled the half-inch layer to a snowman, its limbs like my body, weak and bony, punctuated with blood each month, every cycle a tearful story. My body prayed to die. Now the girl is dead. My mother is frail and still needs flour to dough for the warm tortillas she bakes for breakfast. December comes each year, heavy for want of snow, but its only desire for nothing, not nostalgia, not prayers, resurrect those days of white. Thank you. I pass the baton on to Raquel.
I love that line, bones like flour, like snow, very visual. I'm going to read another Aztec poem. Whenever we read our history books here in the US, it depends on who's writing the story. And a lot of people that grow up not knowing their history as far as the Aztec culture, they might not know of all of the things that they did, their engineering feats, bringing water into the city. I mean, the streets were super clean. When Cortés came in to Tenochtitlan, they were filthy and dirty, and the people from Aztec were clean. Their streets were clean. The people were, yeah. So this one's a little long, but it's about our Aztec heritage. It's called Azteca. Aztec. My people did not fall in slash and burn farming, dead in dry forest, dead in the heat of the longest summer, dead like a leaf blown. We did not perish. Please, those dusty textbooks dictate falsities, factitious fantasies, falsehoods in white hoods. Aztec blood lives and flows. Check the curvature of your teeth with your fat, moist tongue. That's Aztec. Our daughters braided their hair thick as purple cornstalks trailed behind like black capes, dragging on a million vermilion paved roads, chirping poetry on their way to school, till they turned 15 in the magnificence of Tenochtitlan. Our sons, wondrous engineers, created aqueducts, airborne rivers carrying cool water, liquid purity from mountains like pyramids to 300,000 human and animal bodies and babies. Our sons and hijas del maíz created artificial islands, chinampas, floating fields of soil, sun-reaching, tall, evolutionary maize, maíz, corn, revolutionary gold to feed on and feast. A gift to the world, blessed innovation deserves a standing ovation, each son with a given vocation. Our sons created 2 calendars, 2 circular cycles, 365 and 260, math in Morse code, dots and dashes, language with the aid of 20 different signs, chiseled, sculptured, recorded language of commerce for a wealthy empire, worthy to admire and to aspire. We're still here. Let me teach you some Aztec words. Chile, tomate, jicama, avocado translates to testicle, my favorite chocolate. Chamote, chamaco, chanate, chapulín, chayote, chicle, chipotle, comal, elote, guajolote, hule. Mezcal, cheers, dears. Mezquite, grill me. Mecate, hang you. Mexico, belly button of the moon. Molcajete, moyote, mole, mitote, party on. Nopal, papalote, popote, tomal. Tequila to feel ya. Tocayo, mirror my name. Zacate, sopilote. Aztec words are shared, alive in Nahuatl and Hopi, Prim and Shoshone, Western Northern America. Remember to let your thick, wet tongue touch the roof of your mouth and enjoy Mazatlan, Atlan, Datlan, like 2 hands pressing against each other in rhythm. Clapping hands making maize discs, tortillas, blooming feast around the world. Each tostada, flauta, chilaquile, red and green. Taco Tuesday is a bendición everywhere. We did not perish. We did not perish. We are here.
Thank you, Raquel. I'm writing a book right now, and that poem is just everything I need in it. I don't think I could ever write that, but that was wonderful and well said. Thank you. My book right now is about my experience in the Marines. So it is a Chicano military story, which I know is very difficult for some people. War, I didn't have to go to war, but some people don't, it's a tough subject. So the father figure I had was an uncle who was from the west side of San Antonio, military city. He was the influence. He was a Marine. He was in Vietnam. So over the years as a kid, when I knew him, what was it like? He would tell stories, and one of them was the moment he left. The Chicano hero. Hey Jude plays on a radio in Vietnam when you were told you're going home. The process. Pack your uniforms and gear in the green sea bag neatly. Black and white pictures with Marines, cigarettes in mouth, shirtless and smiling. Passport stamped, Okinawa, Japan. The cold Pacific gently embraced the Crimson Mountains to Los Angeles International, then a shuttle bus down to San Diego Airport, to San Antonio Airport and no one to greet you. You kiss the ground when you land and call a cab. Hippies of the 60s protesting the war keep baby killer in their mouths, tight like the clothes in your sea bag. You strut on through. The cab driver is still one of the few to ever greet you with, "Thank you for your service." You don't remember his name. At home on the west side of San Antonio, no welcome party, just dad watching TV. No friends on the front lawn waiting with a beer. Nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And since we've been talking about each other's poems, and I will say this, even the title, I love just beginning with the title because you're putting Chicano there and the word hero, and also complicating both definitions throughout there, but also sharing a lot about el corazón involved in those moments. So thank you for that, Vincent. Appreciate that. And I think I'm going to deprive the people of more poetry and just talk about some of the great work I just heard. And I think I need to do that because I also want folks to enjoy the poetry in person. And of course, you might be hearing this in a Mexican literature course or an American literature course, and you might be studying about the amazing Texas author series created by the Latino Bookstore in what was once a book desert, but is no more. And it is in conjunction with the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center. But one thing I want to say about those three pieces, and here's why I do want to pause, because we go from a drought to an ocean. And I realize we've got a wealth here. We can do 2 more hours of wonderful poems. But I'm like, you know what? Ahora we gave folks the taste. I do want to just throw a few things out there and let's just chat about it. Mira, bones like flour. I agree. What a powerful line. And we kind of touched on how art shakes up definitions in what I call corporate English. I love it because we don't think about snow in the deserts. We don't think about snow in Chihuahua. We don't think about Chihuahua, maybe. And I love too, even in that line that Raquel picked up in the poem, "Bones Like Flour." You play a lot with the color white. It's just there, and just like it's glaring. Someone let that hang. What I also love, speaking of redefining what Latino poetry is, I love when Raquel broke down those words in Nahua. Like we just gave a lesson in Nahua on the air, broadcasting at 100,000 watts. So if someone's driving on Highway 59, they're being told, "Oh yeah, you're enjoying Mexica art and culture when you experience Chipotle, tu molcajete." Delightful to hear. And then también, I think all those things kind of come together in that we're kind of repositioning history in a wonderful way that, we've covered childhood, at least 500 years of history, Texas. I don't know, Maria, is this what you want to do, unleash as a publisher? We'll start with you and let folks chime in on this nice nebulous thought. ¿Qué piensas?
I want to do everything in publishing, and I want to cover history. I want to cover, ancestry. I want to cover defining meaning for people through poetry, through art. I am also an educator, so I actually taught language arts for 7th and 12th graders at one point in my life. And so these were themes that we always came across, and became a little bit more difficult as time has gone on. So I do feel programs like this, Nuestra Palabra, Tony, are so important, especially if they are going to be getting to classrooms. This is the way poets speak, and without having to carry protest signs and say things, we say it through art and language and form. And this is an excellent way of passing history on to our classrooms. For me, it's been a journey as a publisher, having to also discover who I am as a Latina, a Chicana, what defines me. And so when as a publisher, it's been important to also value and honor those, writers and artists who bring those words to the book, to the table. And how, I always wonder, how is our book going to change the world? A little bit, just a little bit, or how long? We don't know. But so yes, absolutely. For me, it's been an important process, even just writing as a way of healing. And for my students in the classroom, it was healing for them to write poetry, to introduce them to poets, the various types of poetry that are out there, the various ways that poetry could be not just in writing, but even performed. And you know what? When we get to those spaces, that performance, we touch students' corazones. We really do.
That's beautiful. Raquel, I threw a bunch of questions, but Maria has just accused you of changing the world.
I noticed that Carolina was able to get in.
I have no idea how this works.
There we go. Oh, I'm so glad you're here, Carolina.
I'm so sorry. I feel like the bad students who didn't read the syllabus the night before.
No, está bien. And you're a consentida because, of course, Carolina Monsiváis read her first poem in public at Nuestra Palabra when we used to convene at the Party Hall of Chapultepec Restaurant. So this is full circle.
So hello, everybody. Thank you for letting me in. Oh, I was like, I had to go through 5 different platforms, but I'm here. I figured it out.
It's symbolic. We do that to make it symbolic of the struggle, of the barriers we must overcome.
I think Carolina wanted to make one of those grand entrances. Don't wait for me.
I'm so sorry.
Not at all. I tell you what, let's do this. Mira, Carolina, if you'd be kind enough to tell us where you are joining us from geographically, and then read a poem for us.
Sure. So I am actually in the Rio Grande Valley. I'm living in Edinburgh and I work in McAllen. So I actually teach history full time. That's what I do. So I really, really love these opportunities because then it, because I always say I'm a poet and a historian, but I don't, have a lot of time to do the poetry as much. So this is really great for me to participate in this and get to talk about this. And then, push me to finish the next manuscript, which I have started. So it's in progress. It's going. So I guess I'll share like a tidbit and kind of set it up some. So this next manuscript is probably one of the hardest ones I've ever had to write, but important. And so it comes from the perspective of a poet and a historian trying to make sense of a tragic event. So it's been now almost 6 years, but my brother died by suicide. And so this manuscript is a way to make sense of that moment. And I felt like poetry was the only way that I could recreate this, to make sense of it, to remember him. And then it became a journey about identity and community. And so, I just kind of went and allowed myself to discover things organically. And I decided to do it almost in epistolary form. So this is called Letter to My Brother Number 1. My dear brother, querido hermano, you are now the you. In every line's adobe I shape. Your name that I carve when dried weeds and bones jut from lines the size of a bullet. I hold still from my memory of you, my story of you, against all who claim you or who claim that I no longer think of you, and our brown skin in the America where we are not always wanted. And my brother, there is more than one America and more than one remembrance. Your name ruts from every line in a world I'm not sure you would even recognize, where now we would stand between a wall flashed as a promise and children and families in cages, my brother, cages. We are all writing this, and it's already a cliche, but they remain, and the detention centers remain. And if we sat at our weekly Sunday dinners, would you still joke, as you did when we were teenagers, and call me a bleeding heart liberal? Even though I know you admired my fist raised and how I opened myself to stories and pain. My brother, you are the you in every line. And who I want to ask, what would this era mean to you? An amendment threatened by men who want to pluck what took a war to write and made you a citizen. No matter how hard you tried to conceal that small Mexican boy that you were on his mother's lap, stern faces paired and pictured in a black and white passport.
Thank you very much. That's beautiful, powerful. What a great way to end this wonderful session with our colegas, our familias. This is a curated poetry showcase by Mouthfeel Press. Of course, you're experiencing Nuestra Palabra. We're multi-platform now, Carolina. Remember, we were just in person before. Now we're multi-platform. So this will be on social media. It will broadcast on 90.1 FM, KPFT, your Houston community station, which Carolina used to produce.
I did.
You remember those days?
Yes. How amazing. I'm so glad it's still there.
I love it that it's come full circle. And now, just so you know, we'll also air the video on fox26houston.com. And because we never forget our roots, we're also celebrating that this will be part of the legacy of the Texas Author Series at the Latino Bookstore in San Antonio, right there on 1300 Guadalupe. It used to be a book desert. Now it's not. I want to thank our dear familia from Mouthfeel Press and all our familia from Nuestra Palabra who put the show on, Roxana Guzman, Rodrigo Bravo, and everybody who's tuned in. Thank you so much for all you do. We look forward to convening again in the future. Gracias. Thanks for changing the world.